Hey, I'm John Cannell. Today on Preppy Kitchen, we're making a dreamy, delicious orange creamsicle cake. So let's get started. First off, we're gonna make the orange curd, which is the filling for this cake. So grab a medium pan, and in it, we're gonna combine our sugar, cornstarch, and flour. We want 1 1/3 cups of granulated sugar. That's 266 grams. You can make a curd with basically any fruit juice. Everyone knows about lemon curd, but orange curd is so delicious and perfect for this cake. 2 tablespoons of cornstarch to help thicken this up. We're also using 1/4 cup or 30 grams of all-purpose flour. This is another thickening agent. Perfect. We're gonna give this a quick whisk so it's nicely combined. And by the way, whenever I make a curd, I'm actually gonna switch whisks. I like to have a narrow whisk. It'll help you get into the corner of your pot so nothing burns. Whisk, 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 and once that's combined, earlier today I was on juicing patrol and I have 2 cups of freshly squeezed orange juice. Do not use anything but freshly squeezed for this recipe. It was also strained, so there's no pulp. We're gonna whisk in this delicious juice. Just wanna make sure there's no lumps, so give it a nice whisk. This recipe needs 4 egg yolks, so crack accordingly. Separate your whites carefully. We'll be using this for the frosting. I have my 4 egg yolks ready. I'm gonna whisk these in. Just make sure you reserve your 4 egg whites for later in the recipe. Set those aside. Egg yolks add richness. They're gonna help thicken things up, and this is what gives you that lovely color. It's not really the juice as much. This is all combined. We're gonna pop this over medium-high heat and you will be whisking continuously. However, know your cooktop. This one is so hot. I'm gonna cook this on medium or even medium-low. If you're using induction or electric, they all have different understandings of what medium-high is. This curd will get thickened up within about 5 minutes, depending on your cooktop. It's just important to stir, stir, stir. Otherwise, the egg yolks will burn and you won't have that luscious, lovely texture. It'll be like scrambled eggsy, which nobody wants. By the way, if you like my videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's 2 new recipes every single week. So we want this mixture to come to a boil and thicken. I also have a wooden spoon here because that is kind of the gold standard. A little quick confession, I was making a lemon curd the other day for a new recipe I'm developing, and I was using my standard like lemon curd recipe, so I wasn't even changing anything. It totally flopped, and it was because instead of making it on this, I made it on an induction cooktop, and even though I temped it out, it never set up. So in the fridge for days after I added the butter in, never set up. It was so sad. Don't rely on the temperature for the curd, rely on the texture. So I'm gonna show you what that looks like, and that way you can learn from my mistakes. So I developed this recipe a long time ago when Preppy Kitchen was a little baby blog, and my inspiration was, of course, those orange creamsicle bars. I used to love those as a kid. I wanted to take those flavors and make it into a really delicious, luscious cake. So you have an orange cake, it's gonna be great. We have orange curd on the inside. This is just starting to come to a boil, by the way, so always keep an eye on this. And then on the outside, oh my gosh, you have the most amazing, silky, perfectly sweet, not too sweet, Italian buttercream. Here, come take a look at this. This just started to thicken up, so you can see the difference in texture. While this boils, I'm gonna cook for an additional minute, stirring my little heart out. So whisk, whisk, whisk. You're gonna notice this thicken more and become a little bit more clear as well. This filling is gonna go into the cake, and you don't want your cake to kind of like explode and fall apart. It needs to be on the thicker side for a curd. That's one of the reasons we added a tiny bit of flour in here. I cooked my curd for an extra minute. I wanna show you, it really coats the back of a wooden spoon well. I can run my finger through carefully because it's very hot, and it leaves, there's like no sliding around, it leaves that trace. You could even see off my whisk, it's like very nice and luscious. So this curd is lovely, but it doesn't have the right mouthfeel. It's not gonna be silky enough. What we're gonna do is add just a little bit of butter. In this case, it's 1/3 cup or about 75 grams of salted butter. And we're just gonna whisk that in. It will help stabilize the curd, and it'll give you the most amazing mouthfeel and really help you to taste better. Butter is great at helping you taste things. Whisk until the butter disappears. And one tip I forgot to give you, if your oranges are kind of flat, sometimes they just don't have a lot of taste, you could sub in like a quarter cup of lemon juice to really brighten things up. The acidity is important, and sometimes your oranges just aren't that acidic. This needs to cool down, and to make that happen quicker, we're gonna pour this into a bowl so it can really like start from a cold place. The metal's too hot. This needs to chill while we work on the rest of the recipe. Grab a sheet of parchment paper or some plastic if you want, and just place that over the top so the curd doesn't develop a skin. It'll depend on your fridge, but this needs to chill for about 2 hours. Pop that into the fridge, and we're gonna work on the rest of the recipe. While our curd is chilling, we're gonna make the cake later, so preheat your oven to 350 Fahrenheit. You're gonna want 2 racks towards the center, or you can preheat 2 ovens if you have that. Into a large bowl, I'm sifting the dry ingredients, starting off with 4.5 cups or 540 grams of flour. This is a big cake, so there's a lot of ingredients here. To puff things up, we need 2 tablespoons of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of salt for contrast. Okay, we're gonna sift this out now. Sifting isn't mandatory, it's optional. You don't have to sift your ingredients unless it's cocoa powder, but it helps for flour just because it'll break up any clumps, it aerates the flour, and gets the mixing started. See, there's like a lot of like little rock pieces of flour in here, which would just be annoying and might not dissolve when you're doing the final mix. Just break those up. Our scale is done. Grab a whisk, and we're gonna mix this up. Distribute all that salt and baking powder so all the cake layers taste the same. Set your dry ingredients aside. We're gonna grab our stand mixer or another big bowl if you're using a hand mixer. In the bowl of my stand mixer, I'm adding 152 grams or 2/3 of a cup of butter. This has been softened, and I'm using salted butter today. I liked my cake to have a little bit more bite from the salt, but you could use unsalted butter and scale it back according to your wishes. It's your cake. To my butter, I'm adding the zest of about 2 oranges. You're gonna end up with roughly 2 tablespoons. If your oranges are tiny, it might be 3. You can always add a little bit more zest though. There's so much flavor here. You wanna make sure you add it in early so it's kind of rubbed with the sugar later on to get those oils out and really have more flavor. Zest is zested, so pop that in. I'm also adding in 2/3 of a cup of sour cream or 160 grams. This gives you a lovely bit of tang, and it is still fatty like the butter, but it's gonna be a bit lighter. So it adds a lot to the cake without making it too dense. Pop your paddle attachment on, and we're gonna beat this on medium speed for about a minute or so until it's nice and combined. After about a minute of mixing, it's time to add 3 cups of granulated sugar in, so just add that in slowly. It'll help it combine more evenly. Number 1, 2, not like you're making a meringue, it's just not dumping it all in together. And 3. Now increase to high. We're gonna let this run for about 2 minutes or until our mixture is light and fluffy. And during this time, all the oils from that zest will get pressed out and you'll have a lovely orange flavor before we even add the juice in. While that's mixing up, we're gonna crack 6 eggs into a bowl so they're ready for the next step. Before I start adding my eggs in, it's time to scrape the bowl down. Back to medium speed. We're gonna add the eggs in 1 at a time, and you should do a couple scrape downs, maybe 2 to 3. Here we're adding so much water from these egg whites that the mixture you can't dump it all in at once, it just won't mix properly. So, 3 down, give it a scrape. Back to mixing. And last egg. Last scrape down. This looks really nice. I don't see any lumps. It's well combined. Before you add the flour in, you can mix almost as much as you want. After the flour goes in, minimal mixing in order to have a light and fluffy cake. Overmixed flour gives you a dense, gummy cake. You don't want that. I have 2 more cups of freshly squeezed orange juice here. This will give us a ton of flavor in addition to the zest. We're gonna add the flour mixture in 3 additions, alternating with our orange juice. while mixing on the lowest setting. So, third of the flour, let that mix in for a sec, and then add half the orange juice. Another third of the flour. Does not have to be exact, by the way. The remaining orange juice. And the remaining flour. I'm gonna let that mix for just a few seconds, and I'm turning it off because I have to scrape the bowl down anyway, so I might as well finish mixing it by hand. Always scrape your beater down as well, because if you notice, this is like pure orange zest. There's a lot of flavor in there. Scrape it down and finish mixing in any stray bits of flour. This is scraped down and ready to transfer into our 3 8-inch pans. I've buttered these. They have parchment paper rounds. I'm just gonna add some flour in really quickly and they'll be ready to go. Distribute your batter evenly between the 3 pans. You could use a scale if you want it to be perfect. You could just pop these into the oven now, but since we're doing a fancy cake that we're decorating with a filling, it's nice if the cake layers are gonna be really fluffy and really flat, not domed. To make that happen, I'm using cake strips today. These are just wet fabric strips that you wrap around cake layers, and it lets the edge cook more slowly so it rises to the top. It's really handy. You can make these, you can buy them, it's up to you. You want your strips to be damp, not sopping wet. So just squeeze out any excess water and then tighten them around the edge. When I first started baking, I would make these using tin foil strips that had some wet paper towels on the inside. You can reuse those maybe like 3 or 4 times, but eventually the tin foil breaks down. Sorry, the aluminum foil. If you want to learn more about cake strips, there's a post on the blog about it. I could include a link in the description box below. My cake layers are ready to go into the oven about 30 minutes or until the centers are springy to the touch and a skewer inserted in the middle comes out clean. It's a good idea for you to rotate the pans about 20 minutes into the bake so they bake evenly. Otherwise, the top will be more burnt on the top and the bottoms will be more burnt on the bottom. So they'll be evenly cooked. In you go. This cake gets wrapped in a silky, luscious Italian buttercream. If you wanted to, you could use Swiss buttercream instead. They're both gonna be fairly similar. For an Italian buttercream, we're gonna make a hot sugar syrup and a meringue, pour the sugar syrup into the meringue, and then we're gonna add the butter. These 2 things will happen at the same time, so let's set them up right now. In a heavy bottomed saucepan, I'm adding 2 2/3 cups or 533 grams of granulated sugar. This is a big cake, so it's actually a double batch of frosting that we're calling for here. To the sugar, we're adding 2/3 of a cup of water. Give that a little shimmy and set this aside. Into the bowl of my stand mixer, fitted with a whisk attachment, I'm adding 8 egg whites. I'm gonna grab 1/3 of a cup of sugar and have that ready. This will get poured in while the mixer's going. The last thing you need to have ready for this is 4 cups of softened butter. It shouldn't be hard, it shouldn't be melted, but it should feel fairly soft. This is what gives you problems in this recipe. If your butter's too cold, it kind of like has the consistency of cottage cheese. I'll tell you how to fix that later. And if it's too warm, it has the consistency of soup. So it needs to be just right. I'm grabbing my sugar as well as a candy thermometer. I'm gonna place this on medium-high heat right now. And you're gonna stir constantly until the sugar melts. So it looks really cloudy at first, and once it becomes clear and comes to a boil, you will stop stirring. So stir frequently, and I'm gonna keep an eye on this. Now we can go to our mixer and get that started. Pop that on, medium-high speed, and I'm just gonna let the sugar go in a bit slowly. My sugar's in. This is gonna run while I attend to my sugar. Just keep an eye on it. You want it to have beautiful, soft, silky peaks. I looked away for 1 second and my sugar came to a rolling boil, so get that spoon out of there. And at this point, I was pretty messy and there was sugar water all over the side of my pot. That could scorch and discolor things and be burnt. So just grab a pastry brush and some water and you can brush the side down and that'll fix everything. This needs to come to the softball stage, which is 235 Fahrenheit. Right now, it's at 229, 230. So it's actually pretty close. My meringue is pretty close, so I need to keep an eye on this. The temperature climbs really fast, and then it hits a little wall, and it climbs slowly, which is right around 230. So just need to keep temping it, keep an eye on it, and then we're gonna start carefully pouring things together. All right, perfect. 235 to 240 is the range. If it gets hotter than that, it becomes the hardball stage, which is a hard crystallized sugar, which you do not want. So my sugar is the right softball stage. Let's take a look at our egg whites. That's a beautiful peak. It's a nice, floppy, soft peak, which is right where you want things at. At this point, I would grab a pot holder or some really good kitchen towels, and we're gonna pour the sugar in slowly and carefully while the mixer runs at medium speed. So, medium speed. Now just drizzle this in carefully and try and get it into the egg whites. Slow and steady. This hot sugar syrup is cooking the egg whites and stabilizing things. So you're gonna end up with a lovely Italian meringue, which in and of itself is like stunning. And by the way, if you didn't have a candy thermometer, you could still make this. Just grab a glass of cold water and a spoon, and then you're gonna get a little spoonful of the hot sugar, dunk that into the cold water, and if it forms a ball with the consistency of sap, it's at the right stage. If it just kind of disappears and dissolves, it's too cold. And if it forms a hard, like a hard crystal glass ball, that's too hot. The last of the sugar is gone. Now we're gonna increase speed to high. Add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. This is so hot right now. You want this to be room temperature. So let your mixer do all the work. It's gonna run on high for about 10 minutes or until the meringue is room temp. If it's a really hot day or you're in a hurry, you can pack the bowl with frozen pea bags and that'll cool down quickly. This is 135 degrees right now, so we have some time and we'll be right back. So my meringue is on the warmer side of room temperature and my butter is on the cooler side of room temperature, so it should all even out. It's gonna look horrible as soon as you start adding butter in until the last piece goes in, because the butter is gonna cause the meringue to turn into a soup. Eventually you'll add the full 4 cups of butter and it'll provide that lovely structure you need for this luscious buttercream. Oh, it smells so good already. All right, so just keep adding your butter in, a tablespoon at a time. I always call this your wishing well moment, like throwing little coins of butter in and hoping for a delicious frosting. And I am not gonna lie, this cake has several steps, right? But you can step it out. So I often don't have a big block of time to make things, which means that I will take a little bit of time and make the orange curd. That can stay in the fridge for a few days. I'll make the cake layers. Those can stay, those keep fairly well. You can even freeze them if you wanted to. And the buttercream can be made on a separate day as well. So you can make the buttercream really far in advance. It's good in the fridge for up to a week, and you can freeze it for up to 2 months. You'll just have to let it come back to room temperature and then re-whip it. Today I'm flavoring this with vanilla, but you could use a combination of vanilla and a little bit of orange blossom water if you want to bring that orange flavor all throughout the cake. Both the cake and the filling have a big punch of orange flavor though, so it's nice to give your palate a little bit of a break and have some contrast. It looks completely like soup right now, and this is where a lot of people panic because they're like, oh my gosh, my frosting is ruined. I've added almost all the butter in and it's still quite liquidy. Like, look at this. Like pure liquid. It might actually be a bit warm, but that's okay. It's easy to fix, so don't worry. But the problem is people panic and they stop adding butter and just keep whipping, but there's not enough butter in there for the structure, so it never whips up. So have faith in the recipe and add the butter in. Last stick. all my butter's in, but I was in a bit of a hurry, so it's a bit liquidy right now. It looks like this, which is not okay. We can fix this by letting the mixer keep on mixing or popping this into the fridge for about 5 minutes to chill out and then whipping it back up. Not too long or it'll get too hard. Just like 5 or 10 minutes until the bowl is nice and cool to the touch. So 10 minutes in the fridge, go back to mixing. I'm gonna add my 2 teaspoons of vanilla right now. And already I can see that it's like frothing up. Before it was like a flat soup. Look at that. It just was a little too warm. This is perfect. And it's like staggeringly delicious. This is one of my favorite frostings. This cake could just be a beautiful, like light cream colored cake and everyone will think, oh my gosh, that is stunning. But we're gonna go a little bit above and beyond and make a beautiful orange ombre. So you can see this is an orange creamsicle cake. So I'm gonna divide the batter up. 1 cup to build the cake, 1 cup for the decorative tip top, and the rest of it is gonna be divvied up for our layers of color. So grab some bowls, your piping tips, and let's get to work. I have my cake stand and my first cooled cake layer here. This is about 1 cup of frosting that I'm gonna use for the crumb coat. So you want to have a nice thick layer to support the cake. Wow. I've used too much frosting for that, but it's okay, don't worry. There's extra frosting in here, I swear. Now you want to use about half of your curd. This really set up, it was in the fridge overnight, and I just gave it a really quick mix to kind of bring it back. It was a little solidified, which is what happens with curds. An optional step at the very end is to have a pool of orange curd at the very top. I think it looks nice, but you don't have to do that. If you do, reserve 3 tablespoons of the curd, and then we're just gonna warm that up and thin it out a little bit at the very end. Spread that to the edge, and now we can add the next cake layer carefully on top, just like that. Grab some more frosting. 1 more ring. The remainder of the curd, you could save some for later or have a little taste test right now if you wanted. Place your final cake layer on top, and you want to check to make sure everything is nice and level. If your cake starts wibbling and wobbling, grab a big wooden skewer or any kind of skewer, place it right through the center, and pop your cake into the fridge to let the icing set up. Then you can bring it out and continue. This looks totally fine for me though. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit more frosting and just smooth out a paper thin coat onto the cake. This is my crumb coat. You can also smooth the side a bit. This is not a very crumbly cake, so I'm not worried too much about having a complete crumb coat, but it'll help just to get the layers a bit more even before we really get into the decorating. The cake is ready to go into the fridge right now while I make my little ombre situation happen. It'll set up and be really easy to frost now. You know, when I made a cake very similar to this for a YouTube video back at the very beginning of the channel, I went to open the fridge up at this point, and the cake literally slid on me and fell on me. Then all that work, it was a nightmare. This is totally fine though, not gonna happen. Your ombre could be like 4 layers, 2 layers, 3 layers. It could be whatever you want. I think 5 is a good number to get a beautiful gradient. So pure white being 1, the deepest orange on the bottom, and then we're going to work from there. So grab 4 bowls. This is a meringue-based frosting, so you have a choice. I'm using gel food coloring, and if I just poured the gel food coloring in and mixed, it would look like a beautiful, like light pastel color, which is what I did before. But what you're actually supposed to do is use a little bit of food coloring, just like a drop, and melt this in the microwave, and then you mix it in. Basically, you need to melt the meringue and the butter so that the color can incorporate. 10 seconds in the microwave, and this went back to being a soup. And we're just gonna mix this up. And this orange is so much more vibrant than if you had dumped the entire bottle in and not melted it. Basically, the color forms these little tiny micro bubbles, and just changes the look. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 batches of buttercream in addition to my reserved, this looks like a cup and a half or so, for the decorations on top, which will be pure white. I actually have a little bit of frosting left in here as well. The biggest batch is gonna be for the darkest orange. I'm gonna mix this in and then take a little bit and make my gradient. So pretty. Let's add a little bit more color. Now take less color and add it to the next batch. Mix, mix, mix. You're just adding less color to each batch so that you can have that beautiful gradient of color. My 4 batches of color are ready. I'm gonna transfer these to piping bags and we're gonna get to work. So, by the way, this is like the most amazing, silky, beautiful, perfectly sweet buttercream that is the easiest to decorate with, but there's a catch. Aside from it taking longer than a regular American buttercream, you have to whip it right before using it. If you do that, it's perfect. If you don't do that, it'll have little bubbles and be foamy, like a lot of other buttercreams. So just make sure that it's not hanging out on the countertop when you finally decide to use it. Just give it a quick stir, like a vigorous stir, and it'll come together. Now we're gonna pipe about 2 or so rings of color around the cake. So I just snipped the tip off the piping bags because this is a casual affair. And I'm going to just pipe it like this. I'm using a cake turntable because that's the easiest way, but you don't have to. It's okay if you have a little bit of frosting left over because you might need it to fill in once you start smoothing. So I don't think you have to use every last drop. And I have some extra reserved white buttercream. I'm just gonna plop that on the top. You can do a little bit of pre-smoothing just to get some of those rings leveled out, but you cannot contaminate your gradient. So as you move, just make sure you clean your tools off. Just using my small offset a little bit, and then I'm going back and forth to fill in gaps that I find. Once I have this pre-smoothed, I'll give it a final smooth with a bench scraper. And you can let me know in the comments if you would actually make this cake or if you just like watching. I get both sides of it. Some people love baking, some people love watching people make things, and I'm just curious. Grab your bench scraper, and now we're just going to start smoothing it out. I think it's ready for the final smooth. I think it looks pretty nice. You're gonna finish the edge off by pulling in as you turn. I whipped up the remaining frosting one more time so it got its consistency back, popped it into a big piping bag with a large open star tip, and I'm gonna pipe a rope pattern. You could do dollops if you wanted, or leave it plain, it's up to you. So just swirl as you move the cake. So pretty, and it's actually a really easy pattern. This looks lovely and could be done, but if you reserved 3 tablespoons of your curd ahead of time, you can melt this in the microwave in 10-second bursts and stir really vigorously. You could add like a teaspoon or so of butter, and once it's nice and slack, pour that right into the center. Smooth towards the edge, then let this set up in the fridge for about 30 minutes so it sets up nicely. Then, just like that, it's ready to slice and enjoy. This delicious cake will be gone in a flash, but you can store leftovers in the fridge for up to 4 days and it'll be delicious. Jam-packed with orange flavor, and I love the contrast of that silky vanilla buttercream. It's a show-stopping cake that I really hope you enjoy. And if you like my videos, hit that subscribe button and check out my special cake playlist.